I was calling it the border of our kitchen and living room. We're kind of in between setup here. So we're here and we're just kind of going through the times, and we're just going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of sports. Of course, with COVID-19, we're going to talk a little bit about the NFL free agency. Billy's down from Texas Tech. He covered the Texas Tech basketball team. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about softball, where that got left off at, and a couple of sports topics. And we want to, comment on our Facebook page on Real Sports Live. And if you have a question or a comment, feel free to chime in there. And we want you guys' feedback. So just let us know what you guys are talking about. So Billy, what's going on? You came down from Tech. When did you get back home?
Got back home about, I think it was Saturday night, drove the long drive, usual 11 hours. It's interesting, just the whole surreal and reality of what's going on nowadays, just the craziness going on, all the rules just being put into place now with COVID-19 impacting our daily lives, and especially the sports world and the jobs we work in. So, yeah, got back down. Classes are online the rest of the way. So we'll figure that out as it goes. I'll probably head back for a couple time, practice social distancing.
Kevin Ledesma.
We're trying to do that as we do this, Coach. Yeah, that's the big thing too. We got to practice and try to get this world better. Once again, it's just so surreal what's going on. I mean, you can't even imagine. No sports on TV, no sports to even cover, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and it affects us because this past Tuesday was the first Tuesday we were without a game, and I was a little confused. I was a little lost on a Tuesday evening, a Tuesday night, sitting here at home like, well, what do we do next? What's there to do? There's nothing to go to, and then there's nothing to watch, especially for sports guys like us. And it's crazy because just a week ago we were out at ball games. Last Tuesday we had that crazy Harlingen South Lyford game. That game had, I don't know if you saw, but it had 7,000 views on our Facebook page. We were full steam ahead. It was just unfortunate we had to pull the game upon the coach's requests. We had to pull the game, so by 10:30 that night we pulled the game at 10:30. And we had 7,000 views on that softball game, and we knew we were going to get some pretty serious hits. That was Tuesday. Then Wednesday, Incarnate Word played San Benito. Myself and Rudy were out there at the softball game. We were able to stream that game, and then, of course, Friday we were looking forward to a couple of softball games. We had BVM Mercedes, then we had Harlingen and San Benito. I was getting ready for that game. I went out Thursday, went to Harlingen. I got the setup ready to go. Coach Silva, we knew where we were going to set up for Friday. And then Wednesday is really when was the first major domino effect when the NBA said that they were postponing their season. And I think from there on, since then, the world has been very different from how we see and do things. And, where were you at when, you said it was your birthday last Wednesday. So where were you at when you heard the news about the NBA postponing the season?
It was a kind of crazy birthday to even begin. I had an 8 o'clock online test, and then from then on got the email saying, you know what, Texas Tech said we're going to go online rest until further notice. And I was like, okay, that's cool. That's a cool birthday present to start off the day. And then, like you said, just the domino effect. NBA gets canceled.
Postponed.
Right. Postponed for now.
See, that's
the key word.
Right.
Canceled and postponed are two different things. Just people
need to understand that.
They need to understand that and get that clarified. Postponed being we're putting it aside for now, waiting to see how the game plan works on. And like I said, Big 12 tournament. We were getting ready to cover that day. Texas Tech was obviously, of course, going to play Texas that day. We're looking forward to that. 11:30 start. One of our guys that I work with was up there, and he said they were on the court warming up, and then minutes before the game even started, they're like, you know what, we need you off the court. We're canceling this game, and it really just took off from there. And like you said, the domino effect. NBA, NHL got in there. Major League Baseball put spring ball aside, and is. Like
yeah, and we were, and we
that's
we
where
were,
I was.
Yeah, and see, I was in San Benito at the softball game, and Rudy and I were just breaking down all the equipment, and then I got a text on my phone showing that the NBA had postponed their season, and I was like, wow, like what in the world is going on? Like, is this real? Like, are they really doing this? Are they gonna stop basketball? And I'm not the biggest basketball fan, so I really wasn't too sure. And I just remember, I think it was the Oklahoma City and who was it?
Utah Jazz.
The Jazz, and that they had the team doctor run down there to the court and say, hey, like we're waiting for league officials to say whether we're going to play this game or not. And it's like, wow, like, okay, so this really is happening. There isn't going to be any sports. And to think that today's Friday, it's been a week and what, 2 days?
It's been the longest week,
it's,
and oh
it's
my goodness, man.
it seriously has been the longest week. So, again, I was in San Benito at the softball game, and then, we had, at least here in the Valley, Los Fresnos was the first athletic program, the first school to really postpone their dates. That happened with their district opener for softball on Friday. They were going to play Harlingen South. So that kind of threw a curveball at the teams and people in the Valley. Like I was saying, okay, Los Fresnos is the first program to postpone their games. So what did that mean for the district? We were thinking, okay, well, Harlingen and San Benito are going to play. Hannah, Rivera are going to play. So, do you make up this game at a later date, or how are you going to go about it? And with the way it looked, was I was thinking because the rest of the district was playing, no one else agreed to that. Los Fresnos just went on their own and said, "Hey, we're just going to postpone the games." And ultimately, of course, Harlingen, San Benito, they postponed their games. Hannah and Rivera actually did end up playing that night, and they actually went extra innings. And I didn't even know, I didn't get word that they were still playing or not. So for Friday, I went from going to Harlingen, San Benito. My dad and I, we trucked it. Mark, we went all the way down to Brownsville Veterans to catch that game versus Mercedes. And at that time, we were like, okay, is this going to be the last game of the year? Is this going to be the last game of this until 2 weeks, a week? Because we had just gotten word that it was going to be till on that Monday till the 29th, that 2 week span, we weren't going to have anything, but we were going to have practices. So we're like, okay, going into Friday's game, it's like, all right, there'll still be practices. We'll wait 2 weeks. And even the umpires were coming up to me along the fence, and they were saying, like, hey, so, what's going on? Is this really going to be the last game? And I said, well, at least starting Monday, for the next 2 weeks, there won't be, but there'll still be practices. But we don't know if this is going to be the last game at all. And that was just kind of a very interesting talk, a very different conversation to be having with umpires, rather than, man, can you believe that strike called? Or, man, can you believe this coach? Or can you believe this or believe that? It's just a very different, unorthodox conversation to have. And it's just a very surreal conversation to have. And after that, we wrap up, and Saturday there was baseball going on. The Edinburgh, the Robert Luis Alamia Classic was going on. So we had games scheduled, doubleheader at Edinburgh North and at Edinburgh High for Saturday. Mark and I go out to the park only to find out that they've cut the games from 2 games to 1 game. Teams are starting to pull out of the tournament, and it's like, okay, like we didn't even know that. And one of the police officers there was like, well, we just got notice this morning that teams are pulling out, and we're only going to have 1 game instead of 2. So it's like, okay, all right. Little by little, it really started to hit us like this is real. Sunday, we were going to have the 7-on-7 here in Edinburgh with Team Zap and all those teams. Then Coach Mata texted me that, nope, push it back a week. And now I imagine there isn't going to be anything this weekend. So, everything really just got put on hold. And I think finally Tuesday of this week is when reality finally set in. It's like, okay, we heard it, we seen it, we saw how everything was being postponed. And then finally when Tuesday came, the day of the games, it's like, okay, this is real. There's nothing for us to do. What do we do now?
And that's where you were here at home, and you're like, man, what do I do? And I wanted to point out that one of the soccer games, I think Jacob Young did that game, the McAllen and Memorial game. That was potentially our last soccer game at the time as well. And then like I said, none of us even knew at that time that it would have been our last for a while.
Right.
Just going back to what you said, it's just the reality that's setting in, like not even arguing with officials at the time, to saying, oh, that's a bad call, oh, this, oh, that. No, it's saying, Coach, Kevin, these teams are pulling out. What's the situation?
Yeah. Yeah, and you just kind of take a step back and you're like, okay, wow, like, this is a serious deal. So it's been about a week and a couple days, and actually today's Friday. So a week ago today, we did our last broadcast. That was Mercedes and Brownsville Veterans. Since then, we've kind of just been waiting around to see what happens. And then now you look at the latest news. Now we're not talking about March 29th. Now we're talking about everything being pushed back till May 4th. So now we're talking about a whole month. And there's so many moving parts to this because you can look at it from a reporter's point of view and say, well, where's the content at? And I know it was a little funny that we'll talk about it in a little bit about the NFL free agency, but when DeAndre Hopkins got traded, a lot of my sports friends that were in the media
Everyone
were like,
screamed
yes,
content.
content. That was the word. Yeah, they're like, we have content. We have something to put on air. And I'm just like, wow, like, I'm like, that's crazy. Like, we see that one story and we're like, all right, now we got something to put on TV. Now we got something to talk about. Now we have something to write about. But yeah, you talk about those things and where it's at. And I talked with some of the coaches on maybe some potential solutions on how and if and hopefully we do get to play sports in the spring. Is you're looking at it for softball, who's some teams have yet to start district, was the 6As, and then the 4As started district, the 5As already started district, 3A hasn't started district. At the time when it was till March, with 29th, we figured you'd have the month of April to play, and in the 4A district specifically, it was going to be, or the deadline was April 28th. Teams had to finish their play by then in order to start the playoffs. So they had a month worth of time to finish their season. So the solution, what we were thinking was, well, you can just play one round of games. Your first round of district games, you play them, you get it done with, and then you jump into the playoffs. How would UIO handle the playoffs do you go one gamer the whole way until you get to state in late May, early June? And it's like, wow, like do you do that? For 6As, it's a little bit easier because they've yet, or at least for 32 6A, they've yet to start district. I know 31 6A and 30 6A at least have about 2 district games under their belt. It's kind of different when you think about that. And then you think about teams that have already started it, like Mercedes and EdCouch. They were both 3-0. This past Tuesday, they were supposed to play, and that would have been a 3-0 versus 3-0. It changes the way these coaches are going to have to strategize their season, and especially if you're only going to play them once. So essentially, for those two teams, that's your district championship right there because you're only going to play one round. I mean, what do you think? Would that be a solution?
I was gonna mention, like the difference between 32 6A and let's say the bigger, more upper valley districts like the La Joyas, the McAllens, those districts up there, they're more bigger. So in a way, it would be like saying, hey, if we give you one round of games, it's essentially kind of unfair to particularly the seniors. We've seen a lot of seniors saying, wow, I'm so sad this is my last game that I played that I never even know of. So I don't know if you agree with this, but it would be a little bit sad to see how if 32 6A would be like, hey, let's play one round, and they'll play one round, and 31 6A will have more teams will play one round. It's kind of a little bit unfair, but that's just, it'd be a little weird. Like I imagine they have more ideas too.
Right. Well, we are all in really some uncharted waters right now, and everyone's trying to just put the pieces together and find out a solution. And I think that might be one of the better solutions we have out there is for us to just play that one round, and that's just so happened that's how it happened to come out. Some teams already started, some teams haven't. Just play the first round, and then the playoffs, maybe just do a one gamer because you want to get these games in. And then baseball is a whole other different. Where do you start there with baseball? It's like, so do you just jump into district play automatically and play one round? Soccer is another sport. Girls soccer, they were getting ready to start the playoffs. Do you just start the playoffs May 4th, or when May 4th comes, do you give teams a week to prep and then you start from there?
And this kind of goes all the way back. I'm going to switch this from softball back to basketball, actually. They finished the girls' basketball state championships and all that good stuff. And the boys, they finished, I think it was the state semifinals in the 3A
They were
round.
in San Antonio.
Yeah, they were in San Antonio, and they stopped right there at the 3A level. So now they have all these games waiting. And like you said, they're canceled or postponed till May 4th. So, and they can't practice either.
Right.
So that kind of puts a hold on them staying up to date with the playing, and going back to baseball and it's
I
really
think
tough.
well, I think
baseball's even more tough.
Right. I think the solution was, at first when I saw that teams were going to be allowed to practice, I thought, well, some districts might not allow that. some districts will, and that creates an unfair advantage. So I just thought, in the grand scheme of things, it'd be best to just not allow anything at all. Period. So I mean that would be the fair thing to do because, how can 31 6A have practice and 32 6A not have practice? So it's a little uneven there when you stop and look at it in that way. But now that we're talking that the season could possibly resume on May 4th, you're talking about this month of off period where, well, what do these kids do? How do they stay in shape? And I was talking to Coach Mike Aguilar, the strength and conditioning coach from Harlingen, and he said that they've been sending out different ways, and they've been Twitter. I mean, that's a
Yep.
easy way to get a hold of these kids. They've been tweeting out workout plans. They've been tweeting out videos on how to stay in shape and how to do certain things. And obviously, it's not going to be the same because some kids don't have the luxury of a home gym or access to a gym. So it's going to be a little not as even with for some kids. But the fact that a lot of these coaches are staying in touch with the athletes and giving them tips, giving them workout lessons and routines on how to just try and stay in shape. And at first I was like, okay, 2 weeks, not a big deal. These kids will be fine. I've seen a lot of kids. They've been swinging off the tees or they've been doing their own little workouts. But now we're talking about a month. It's like, okay, like man, like how do these teams just go back and get back into the routine? And that's why I think hopefully when we do come back on May 4th, UIL will give teams maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks to kind of just prepare and start practicing again.
Yeah, you can't just throw them right into the action. Going back to what you were saying about the practices, a couple coaches up in West Texas actually, yeah, they would. Coach Darden, who's a head coach of Lubbock Cooper, his team went to the regional final, and he recorded himself saying, "Hey athletes, we miss y'all. Here's a workout that you got to do." And I think that's pretty cool that what they're doing. Like you said, a lot of athletes don't have the luxury of having their home. Having a workout system at their home, but it's cool to see all the creativity. Like
Right.
kids are going on TikTok making videos, and
Yeah.
you have all this spare time, and
Right.
they're doing your different workouts. And in the end, you kind of get into a bind where, hey, I got to go do something.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's actually kind of a good thing that now we have more time.
Yeah, and see, some people are saying the kids are gonna have to be ready because once the season does start, we're jumping straight into district play, and that's geared more towards baseball because baseball was still, they hadn't jumped into district play yet. So now we're talking about teams jumping straight into district play and just be ready to roll because everyone's in the same boat. And then for softball, I think
And you're talking about pushing the season back into the summer months as well.
Right.
Not just baseball, basketball too. Track even got shortened out as well.
right, and then like Dave Fabula mentioned that for baseball you just go one round. You just go one round. Whenever May 4th, the teams just play one round through district play, and then you start the playoffs. But I think the interesting thing is the playoffs scenarios and how you manage that and whatnot. So that's our opening segment. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Leave a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. If you have a question, you want to start a conversation, let us know. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, what are we going to talk about, Billy? What do you have on the slate?
It's like we're going to get to the NFL offseason moves, a little bit more the broader portion of sports in the world.
All right, so we're going to take a quick timeout. We'll be back in just a moment.
Don't worry, we'll get you taken care of fast and easy. Now you can get back to your day with a healthy smile.
Thanks for watching Real Sports Live.
Thanks for watching Rio Sports Live.
Real Sports 5, number one. Profesores Comunidad de Sharyland. Mi nombre es Cuauhtémoc Paz, director de Currícula e Instrucción de las Escuelas Primarias en Sharyland ISD. En esta ocasión me toca a mí compartir este mensaje en relación al desarrollo de nuestro plan de enseñanza a distancia para que nuestros estudiantes usen en casa mientras nuestras escuelas permanecen cerradas. Primero que nada, nos gustaría agradecer a nuestros padres y estudiantes por su flexibilidad constante a medida que salimos de esta situación sin precedente. El plan de aprendizaje digital del Distrito Escolar de Sharyland iniciará el lunes 23 de marzo del 2020. Recibirán una carta a más tardar el domingo en la tarde con información detallada sobre cómo acceder a nuestros recursos de instrucción digital. Me gustaría enfatizar que si ustedes no tienen acceso a Internet y o recursos digitales, el distrito proporcionará paquetes con material instructivo impreso. También queremos que sepan que todas las lecciones y prácticas de instrucción digital no se usarán como parte de las calificaciones de sus hijos. Para estudiantes de prekinder hasta el grado octavo, nuestro enfoque estará en lectura y matemáticas. Estaremos utilizando recursos en línea con los que sus hijos ya están familiarizados. Les aseguraremos que estaremos proporcionando videos instructivos en nuestra página de internet para padres en inglés y en español, detallando cómo acceder y usar cualquier plataforma que mencionemos. Los estudiantes de preparatoria recibirán comunicación de sus maestros sobre cada materia o curso que estén tomando. Nuestra página de internet tendrá información detallada para estudiantes que toman cursos avanzados y para estudiantes tomando clases de doble crédito con STC. Todos los estudiantes del noveno al 12º grado tendrán acceso a los materiales de preparación para los exámenes ACT y SAT. En unos días más, la barra de colegios compartirá información y detalles adicionales con los estudiantes matriculados o en estos cursos y con los centros de evaluación acerca de los próximos exámenes SAT y AP. En cuanto al examen de STAR, la Agencia de Educación Estatal, TA, ha cancelado todos los exámenes STAR por el resto del año escolar. Esto incluye todos los exámenes del 3º al 8º grado y todos los exámenes de final de curso o EOC. Los graduandos o alumnos del último año de preparatoria que aún tengan algún examen de fin de curso pendiente recibirán comunicación de su escuela sobre el plan de graduación individual. Por favor, estén al pendiente del tiempo que sus hijos pasan en la computadora. Aunque no podamos replicar por completo todo el día instructivo de sus hijos, esperamos que este plan les proporcione oportunidades de aprendizaje y un sentido de estructura y normalidad. Empezando el 23 de marzo, siéntase con confianza de comunicarse por el correo electrónico con el maestro de sus hijos o con el personal de las escuelas si tienen alguna pregunta o si necesitan información adicional. La seguridad de sus hijos es y seguirá siendo nuestra prioridad número 1. Les agradecemos su paciencia continua mientras manejamos esta situación sin precedente. Haremos ajustes a medida que recibamos información actualizada. De parte del Departamento de Currícula e Instrucción, esperamos que todas nuestras familias permanezcan seguras y saludables.
And welcome back. So, second part of our show here. Kevin Naro, Billy Watson, coming to you live from Edinburgh, Texas, from the friendly confines of my living room / kitchen, more or less.
Right on the border of it.
Right on the border, exactly. Like the kitchen's here, living room's here, camera set up there. So I want to thank our sponsors, Hacienda in Edinburgh.
Yeah, this broadcast made possible by Hacienda. Right now, if you could buy a new car or truck at 0 interest, and your first, if you can buy a new car or truck with 0 interest and your first payment not due till 6 months only at Hacienda.
Hacienda Ford here in Edinburgh off of 107. So a big shout out to them and thank you for sponsoring this show. And we're doing our best to keep things going, and again, like we mentioned earlier that, I think my dad just put on a replay of the Spurs game. So it
was great to see right now. Oh,
yeah, for a second, it's like, oh, there's games back on. But we're going to talk a little bit more about the NFL free agency. And, again, chime in if you guys would like. Let us know where you guys are tuning in from. Let us know any questions or anything like that or anything else you want to chime in. So NFL free agency, the wonderful world of the NFL, and how things really got started with that DeAndre Hopkins trade. And see, the funny thing was, I'm a Cowboys fan. I am, and that's people know that. So I just thought it was funny that when we got the news that Hopkins was getting traded to, or rather when David Johnson was getting traded to the Texans, all the Texans fans were really excited. Like, oh, we got David Johnson. We got David Johnson. Oh, this and that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Not bad. But then they're like,
it's not back, but you gave up an essential core
well, they're
piece
like,
of your offense.
well,
too.
then they're best, arguably, well, easily the best receiver in the NFL,
Yes.
if not a top 3. One of they're easily their best weapon. But the thing was, okay, well, what do we have to give up to get David Johnson? It's like, oh, by the way, DeAndre Hopkins is now in Arizona, and it's like, what? I just thought that was funny that.
Not even the first round pick they got back. I think it was a second and a fifth round pick they got along with David Johnson.
Well, Michael Irvin said that they traded DeAndre Hopkins for a ham sandwich. That's what he referred to it as. That they got a
Basically.
steal, and then now you think about what the Arizona Cardinals can do with your guy Cliff Kingsbury, former Texas Tech coach. What they can do with a guy like with DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray,
and then they were even thinking about drafting CeeDee Lamb. So another
from Oklahoma.
Yes, another weapon, another Oklahoma Sooner. So as a matter of fact, that played with Kyler Murray. So
yeah, just how fast.
Just all the possibilities now coming up for the Cardinals as they head into thinking about hopefully entering the offseason, like all the possibilities now the Cardinals have adding DeAndre, Kyler.
Still have Larry Fitzgerald.
Still have Larry Fitzgerald winding toward the end of his career. Just got to find a running back to fill in the slot, but I'm sure they'll find something in this offseason. Who do you think wins this pick? Wins this trade? Honestly.
Well, right now the Cardinals obviously they're the obvious winners.
Obviously.
You know, because now Houston. Well, they did sign Randall Cobb, so he obviously Cobb is not DeAndre Hopkins, but it still kind of leaves the door open for a guy like Will Fuller and Braxton Miller, and then adding Randall Cobb, who these days, honestly, when he was with the Cowboys, all he was a slot receiver, and can he be a 2? Maybe, but I think their offense just shrinks by so much, and I've seen a lot of media personalities were speaking up for Deshaun Watson, and are like, if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm going into Bill O'Brien's office and saying I want to be traded now because you just traded away my best weapon. And it's like, well, I totally agree with that, but to limit the expectations when it comes to Randall Cobb, because I know he was almost 1,000-yard receiver for the Cowboys. I think he had 852 yards and 52 catches. So he did an excellent job for the Cowboys, but as a slot guy, because the Cowboys had Michael Gallup and they had Amari Cooper, and then they had Cobb in the slot, and I thought that was a perfect a fit for him. But now that he's at Houston, maybe look for Cobb to be the underneath guy or a number 2 with Will Fuller, but they can also draft as well.
They can do that, yeah. They probably would have to look for someone like CeeDee Lamb, too, to be like in the slot or maybe their number 2. But if you're the Texans, you're kind of asking a lot out of Randall Cobb, moving up from a 3 to your starting 1 or 2 receivers. He was an essential core part of the receiving core with the Cowboys behind Cooper and last year with Beasley coming up out of nowhere and Beasley being a big part of them and then obviously leaving. Then the next year becoming a top 3 receivers on the team, and now you're Houston. Yeah, like you said, moving him into a slot, the 2 spot would be kind of hard.
Yeah, and it's a lot to ask for, especially when you lose a guy like that. But I know that the perfect tandem was Will Fuller and DeAndre Hopkins, because they allowed him to stretch the field. But and then David Johnson, they're taking on that big contract with David Johnson, and he's on the other side of the hill, as they say. He's a little bit older, a 31-year-old, had a little injury history there. But of course, the big signing is Tom Brady leaving New England and going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I think that is going to be a treat, because now we get Drew Brees versus Tom Brady twice a year. And then that whole division, now you have Drew Brees, you have Matt Ryan, who Atlanta just signed Todd Gurley, then you have Tom Brady at Tampa, and then you have Teddy Bridgewater now with the Carolina Panthers. You have Teddy Bridgewater, you have Christian McCaffrey, you have a little bit of a Matt Rule there, the coach now, so they got a little bit of a new swag going on in Carolina, and I think that division's going to be a lot of fun. But I really didn't see Tampa Bay being the front runner for Tom Brady. I really didn't.
No, I didn't either. I was thinking maybe the Cowboys
For
get
a minute, I
a little
was
bit
worried.
lower Prescott for a year, let Brady get in, maybe help the Cowboys out, put them back in the playoffs, not making a scene or anything.
Well, no, but
but
well,
put
yeah.
Brady on top for a season. But I was thinking, I think I saw somewhere San Diego because Philip Rivers obviously left as well. Where did he ended up going?
Philip Rivers went to the Colts.
To the Colts
on a
that's
one-year
right,
deal.
1 year deal. And so Chargers are out of luck on a quarterback too. So I was thinking, hey, Chargers prime for a quarterback, and yeah, I think it was pretty shocking that Tampa Bay out of you obviously don't see Tom Brady in a Bucs uniform, and
Well, now we're gonna have to.
now we're gonna have to. They actually came out with new jerseys today that actually like kind of resemble a new but like throwback. I don't know if you saw them, but like they're kind of old. They look new. They're new, but they're obviously a little old. But it'll be interesting to see how Tom Brady gets along with his receivers. I honestly like it. Mike Evans and
Yeah.
Godwin.
Yeah, see, now Brady's going to have some serious weapons with Chris Godwin and with the years he had. I know fantasy-wise he did really good. And then a guy like Mike Evans and Ronald Jones, they're running back. So there are definitely some pieces there. And Bruce Arians has a great mind for football, and he's coached, Peyton Manning.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's got a good track record now with Tom Brady, Carson Palmer, in his time in Arizona, even Kurt Warner. So he's got a very, very good track record when it comes to quarterbacks. So we got someone chiming in. Brady's got all those weapons. O.J. Howard, the tight end who was from Alabama. I've been waiting to break out. I had him on my fantasy team this last year, and I was hoping that this would be the year that O.J. Howard would break out. And, I mean, maybe this just might be the year that he breaks out. And then now the question is for Jameis Winston, where will he go? And then I'd seen that the Redskins were even maybe interested in Jameis Winston, and as a Cowboy fan, I'm like, sure, let them bring
Let them
Jameis
get a
Winston
quarterback
in.
that throws a lot more interceptions than touchdowns.
All right, and,
Right.
and yeah, Jameis Winston was a 30 for 30 guy. I'll use
Exactly.
a baseball term, but not in a good way. He threw 30 touchdowns, but he also threw 30 interceptions.
But that's still relatively good, almost.
No,
Sort of. I don't know.
no,
If you-
I could not stand if my team's
your
quarterback threw 30
constantly throw
interceptions.
Yeah.
Because you don't win games like that. And, we were one of our buddies at the Star, Eder, he's a big Tampa Bay fan. And we're like, wow, just adding Brady, just the experience, will win them a couple more games. And, we could see Tampa Bay maybe going 10-6, 11-5 maybe, just having Brady
Like you
there.
said, though, that division's going to be really tough.
It's
so
going to be fun, yeah.
It'll
Now
be fun. It'll be
yeah,
tough,
and now
too.
Atlanta adding Todd Gurley. And Todd Gurley, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. So they all of a sudden Atlanta's got some serious weapons, and hopefully Todd Gurley can stay healthy. That's going to be the key. If he can stay
That's the
healthy.
big thing, yeah. He had the first couple years of his career really well with the Rams, and then had the off-season really bad. Not bad, but really off-season last year, and I think it'll be a new start for him in Atlanta. Have a veteran quarterback in Matt Ryan, and then Julio Jones on the outside. I mean, it'll open things up for him, and I think I'm looking forward to seeing Todd Gurley in Atlanta.
And then, of course, for the Cowboys, the big news there was Jason Witten leaving in free agency. Obviously, he was a lot older, and the Cowboys elected to re-sign and give Blake Jarwin a good 3-year contract. I really liked that deal. Blake Jarwin did a lot of good things in the offense this year for the Cowboys. And just Jason Witten, as sad as it was to see him go, I was just a little disappointed. And I remember when I was a kid, I was in junior high, when Emmitt Smith went to the Cardinals. I was like, oh, man, it just kind of tarnishes it because, those guys are Cowboys. But, they lose Jason Witten. They lose Jeff Heath to the Raiders, Malik Collins to the Raiders. Obviously, Byron Jones got that big deal out in Miami, and rightfully so. And we kind of figured as a Cowboys fan that, it was Byron Jones, Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott. All those guys needed big deals. One of them was going to get the short end of the stick. One of them wasn't going to be re-signed. And we always figured that it, was probably going to be Byron Jones. And for sure enough, it was, because the Cowboys re-signed Amari Cooper. And the crazy thing was that the Redskins actually made a deal. They offered Amari Cooper a contract, and they were offering him more than the Cowboys did. But he elected to stay with the Cowboys, so I thought that was pretty neat. So they keep their core back. They gave Dak Prescott the franchise tag for a year. So the core pieces are still in play, and excited to see what Coach Mike McCarthy can do. And like I said, they did get gutted on defense, but now when you lose Byron Jones, you have a guy like Jordan Lewis who's just ready to step in and play and make some plays. He did that for the Cowboys this year. Chidobe Awuzie is another guy, and then they just signed Clinton Dix at the safety spot.
That really backs up your secondary as well.
It
signing
does.
him.
It beefs up the secondary. That will replace Jeff Heath. So him and Xavier Woods, hopefully, they can make some plays back there. And then the Cowboys are going to get Anthony Brown back, and then of course adding Gerald McCoy, the veteran defensive tackle, who was a very, I think he was drafted third when he came out of Oklahoma. So he's had a very good career with Tampa Bay and Carolina. So that essentially replaces Malik Collins. But then you still have you still got to replace now Robert Quinn. You've got to replace Michael Bennett. So the defensive line, they're going to have a lot of work to do, a lot of work cut out for them. So any other free agent signings that stood out to you? I know Melvin Gordon went to the Broncos.
That's honestly a big one too, but at the same time, you totally forget about Philip Lindsay. I know my roommates are gonna hate me when I say that. Philip Lindsay. He's kind of the diamond in the rough that actually came out in the Broncos. Had a stellar year this past year, and it'll be interesting to see how they get the backfield in order with Melvin Gordon signing. So that would be interesting to see.
And I like the comment here from Bobby Martinez Jr. Now, it's a good thing when you don't mention your cornerback's name at all during a game. If you think about that, and it makes sense. If you're constantly saying Byron Jones' name throughout a game when you're sitting in your living room, that's not good, because he's constantly getting targeted. He's constantly getting thrown at. The less you say your cornerback's name, I think the better, because they never throw that way, and they never threw toward Byron Jones' way. That's why he only had 3 interceptions in his time with the Cowboys. He was arguably the best cover corner the Cowboys had, in my opinion. And I mean, and rightfully so. He was going to get paid, and obviously the Cowboys were not going to pay that. Another free agent out there is Jadeveon Clowney. Where will he go? He's expecting the big payday, and where the Cowboys going to sign him? I don't think so. If they weren't going to pay Robert Quinn that money, they weren't going to pay Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, Jadeveon Clowney I think he was just a great player that just took a while too long to develop with the Houston Texans. Like, kind of a good reason why they traded him, or not a good reason why they traded him, but that's maybe the reason why they traded him. So, I'm excited to see where he goes as well. Cowboys signing him? Yeah, no, I don't think that.
Everson Griffin's a free agent. Jimmy Smith's a free agent. Eric Reed, Demarius Randall, a couple of defensive players, and Ndamukong Suh is still out there. He's still playing football. So, but yeah, I think the biggest news in the free agency was of course Tom Brady signing, and I remember when people were mentioning him. If he goes to the Cowboys, that would be like he would be Captain America, and it would be LeBron to the Lakers on steroids, A-Rod to the Yankees times 5, because you would just think about, what the Cowboys have. They have the weapons, they have the money, they have the brand, they have the owner, they have everything in place for a guy like Tom Brady to just fill right in. And I said it was 2 years. I believed he had a 2-year window, and that's exactly what Tampa Bay gave him, was a two-year contract. So I was like, well, I mean, the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. But at the same time, I'm like, no, the Cowboys are fine with Dak.
Yeah, they would have been fine with Dak. It would not have been a bad place for Tom Brady to retire either. That's a potential. That is a playoff team, Dallas Cowboys.
No, they are, and it was.
And if you had Brady, you would have added Brady.
Yeah, you're talking about adding Captain America to America's team.
But then you got to add other core pieces as well.
They have it all.
They have it
all. They have Amari Cooper. They have Ezekiel Elliott. Blake Jarwin's an up-and-coming tight end. You know how much Brady loves his tight ends. And you have Michael Gallup,
and then a new coaching staff coming in as well.
A new coaching staff. You have fresh blood. So, no, it's a beautiful fit on paper. But at the same time, if you have a guy like Prescott where you're putting your eggs in one basket, and Prescott's done a good job for the Cowboys.
Another free agent that kind of wasn't talked about was Nick Foles.
He got traded.
Got traded to Chicago.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So now you have Trubisky versus Nick Foles, and is Nick Foles going to be the backup there? I think Trubisky's leash is going to be very short, because a lot of Chicago fans are going to hope that Nick Foles can rekindle that backup magic with the Bears.
He got paid in Jacksonville, and then didn't have the year he wanted to, coming off the Super Bowl, or a year off the Super Bowl. So yeah, that's the same story with Trubisky as well. He led the Bears to the playoffs one year, and then next year had high hopes, and then the Bears suddenly tanked, and everyone was like, why is Trubisky doing this? Why isn't he doing so great? I think it's a great move by Chicago to trade for Nick Foles. Honestly, it gives you a couple options where it's almost like the Philadelphia situation where you had forget his name, starting quarterback for Philly.
Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz. My mind's short right now. My mind's everywhere right now. But it's almost like the situation there where you had Wentz and then Foles. Wentz goes down, Foles leads them to the Super Bowl. So I think it'll be a good thing for Chicago.
Well, with Jacksonville trading Foles, is that they're all in on Gardner Minshew, who was really a rock star last year for Jacksonville. So
It's the stash.
let us know where you guys are tuning in from. And yeah, Roel Rodriguez, I hate to see Witten leave too. I mean, if you're a Cowboy fan and you just stop and you think of Witten against the Eagles that year where he ran across the middle, lost his helmet and kept running.
One of the most iconic things.
That defined Jason Witten there. And another thing that was interesting was that the XFL, they officially canceled the remainder of their inaugural season. But the interesting there is they're allowing players in that league to sign NFL contracts.
And actually, yes, a couple of teams. I think the Seahawks and Redskins were a couple of them. They were looking into Houston's PJ Walker.
Right, he was a quarterback, yeah,
Yes.
and then a receiver, Cam Phillips. Those are two of the guys that were at the top of the list. So hopefully these guys can get a contract going. But I thought that was interesting that the XFL officially canceled their season and they allowed players to sign NFL contracts starting on Monday. So keep an eye out for that, and maybe some of these players will sign some NFL contracts. So. We're going to take a quick break. Up next on our slate, what else do we got?
I think we're going to come back to the Valley and talk a little bit about basketball and talk a little bit about the all-region teams, girls and boys side.
Yeah, we had a couple, as a matter of fact, a lot of kids in from Class 2A from San Perlita all the way to Los Fresnos. And I know, Billy, you watched closely how good this Los Fresnos team was and the things they were able to do. And we'll jump from 6A, from 2A, Ty Johnson and his career. Was he on that list?
He was, yes.
Ty Johnson was on that list. We'll talk about him. We'll be back coming to you live here from Edinburgh, Texas.
Thank you for watching Real Sports Live.
It's Truck Month at Hacienda Ford. What is Truck Month? It's when all the trucks are discounted the most, because Hacienda Ford knows whether you're hauling tools to the job site, hauling the kids to practice, or simply hauling ass. Hacienda Ford has the truck for you. With over 300 Ford trucks in stock, you can quit dreaming about the Ford truck you've always wanted and wake up and drive it. Hacienda Ford Truck Month. Hacienda has it.
Hi, we're Robert Mello, Papercats, and thank you for watching Real Sports Live.
TVNS specializes in provider services, respite care, and emergency response services. TVNS are pioneers in the home care industry, in service for over 37 years. 11 locations from Brownsville to Corpus Christi, from Harlingen to Laredo.
Today's game is sponsored by TVNS, the pioneers in serving our community with the highest quality in provider services.
Hi, we're Mackay Bulldogs. Thanks for watching Real Sports Live.
Sherryland ISD, a nationally recognized district focusing on quality and rigorous instruction where every child is immersed in a culture of academic success. A district dedicated to preparing our youth for the future. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and empower all students to reach their full potential and become leaders of the highest moral character. Sherryland ISD, excellence is our tradition.
Hey, welcome back to Edinburgh, Texas. Kevin Arrow, Billy Watson. I want to thank our sponsors, Hacienda and Edinburgh. This broadcast is made possible by Hacienda Ford. Right now, you can buy any new car or truck at zero interest, and your first payment isn't due for 6 months, only at Hacienda Ford here in Edinburgh. So a big shout out to them, and a thank you to them for sponsoring this show. And again, we are going to have a month of hiatus of no sports, at least in the state of Texas when it comes to UIL. So we're going to be looking forward to bringing more of these shows to you, whether we're here at my house or whether we'll be at the studio in Raymondville. Nonetheless, I know we have a couple of things mapped out on what we want to do, and I know in our Real Sports Live tab, we had the boys and girls top 10 basketball. We do plan on maybe recapping those teams, maybe on, one day do a 10 through 6 and then a 5 through 1 and just, talk about the teams and the seasons that they had. And, those are a couple things in the work. So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And let us know where you're watching from. And continue the conversation. If you have any questions, feel free to ask away. A shout out to Brandon Garza. He's chiming in from Harlingen, the former Harlingen Cardinal quarterback. He spent some time at UTSA and at U of H at the quarterback position. So shout out to Brandon. So we're going to talk a little bit more about high school basketball and the 6A Region 4 list. So Billy's going to take it away.
Yep, so here we go, the 6A Region 4 list, which came out a few days ago, rather. Starting off with a kid from Westlake, and we'll stick to the Valley. Ricky Altamirano from Los Fresnos, also from Los Fresnos, Elian Gonzalez. Elijah De La Garza from PSJ North. Let's see who else. I'll go down the list. A few kids from Laredo. Those are Bobby Torres. That's either the San Antonio Alexander or I think that's the right. That is the Laredo Alexander. Bobby Torres from Alexander. Alex Idraga from United. Jose Herrera from Nixon. Bobby Espericuenta from Vela. And a lot of other of the San Antonio and then Westlake as well. So yeah, we'll get started with the team that made almost the furthest run in the playoffs, and that was the Los Fresnos, perhaps one of the best teams in the Valley, arguably. And Ricky Altamirano and Gonzalez are earning the high honors. Man, those guys led their team in what I call what everyone called one of the greater seasons that Los Fresnos has had in years, getting by that round that they would. The second round, was it? The getting by the second round of playoffs and making it to the regional final against region semifinal, because they were in the regional tournament, ultimately falling to Brandeis. But ultimately, what a great year that they had, and then the addition of Jerry Martinez. I don't know if you want to jump in. Did you how many times did you see Los Fresnos this year?
Let's see. I covered them twice against Harlingen. I covered them a handful of times. No, they were a very good basketball team with the things that they were able to do with a guy like Luis Gonzalez, Altamirano, Elian Gonzalez is arguably one of the best athletes in the Valley, bar none. The kid played football. Mm-hmm. He played basketball. He shined on the court. He was the district MVP last year. And just the way he carries himself, and just he could do a little bit of everything. And I was just amazed on how good this kid was. And, he was just a small piece to that puzzle that Los Fresnos had. And, another thing that stood out to me was the size of these kids. Like, you'd go up to Luis Gonzalez, Ricky Altamirano. It's like, my goodness, these kids are all over 6 foot. And then the addition of Jerry Martinez, who's a kid who, as Joe likes to call them, just natural shooters, where they can shoot from anywhere on the floor. And, boy, was he a treat to watch. And the things that he did, and only as a freshman. And one thing that stands out to me every year is how these kids just step in onto a varsity court and they play ball. And it doesn't matter if they're a freshman. It doesn't matter if they're playing against a junior or a senior. Kids are truly special to a guy like Jerry Martinez and the things he did. And I know during that playoff game against Edinburgh Vela, the question was, I said, I was talking to Coach Molina and I talked to Lalo Rios, like, as a shooter, how much does it affect you, the backdrop? And I'm sure you can probably answer this as, these kids are used to shooting in a gym, and now all of a sudden they have to change where they're shooting at with no backdrop. And, does it affect it all as a shooter?
I mean, you feel like a sense of, like, you're a little bit smaller. Like, they were playing in a really nice, big arena at the Bird Ogden Arena, so it kind of takes a toll. I remember my junior let me remember. I think it was my junior. We played at it was a 3A school, but it was a dome almost, or it was a really big dome, and it had a little bit small bleachers, and had a really big, nice dome. So it was a really good basketball court. So I think for me, almost not playing as far as I ever did in high school, it kind of put me in awe. But Jerry Martinez just put that aside, and he was nailing NBA range 3-pointers. Like, geez, that kid was on fire that game. I wanted to go back on Martinez. Me and Joe had seen him in the summer tournament at the RGV Vipers, one of those travel basketball tournaments on the Brownsville teams, and we remember this kid. He was an 8th grader playing on a varsity team, on a varsity travel team, and we're like, man, this guy's gonna be good. And then sure enough, Coach Hossa was putting on his Twitter page that, man, this kid gonna be a freshman. He's gonna be a stud. Sure enough, he came out, had a great year, and he put he set some eyes on him, and he's got 3 more years. This kid's gonna get. He wasn't on the all region list, but I think he's got more sights ahead of that.
Yeah, no, he definitely has a bright future, and that's for sure. And just again, the things that he did, especially in that district, and how tough it can be. But it was really just the perfect storm for Los Fresnos, and I want to kind of dissect what you said earlier. Was that you were kind of in between, like, was this the best season they had, or where did you feel in the season? In my opinion, I felt this was the best season they had, period, because they had never made it to the regional tournament. And, you talk about a team that was due to make a serious playoff run. It was this year's Los Fresnos team, and I just think that, the things that they did in that district, they won their 6th straight district title. And after they beat Vela, I talked with Coach Hinojosa, and he said, our kids are not allowed to celebrate, but, tonight we made some history, and these kids, rightfully so, they deserve to celebrate just a little bit and really just kind of take in the moment and enjoy themselves because of the fact on what they were able to do and what they were able to accomplish, especially in the 6A. I think that's the most impressive part, is that, we had Edinburgh Vela reach the state tournament as a 5A a couple years ago, a team I followed very closely. And I just saw how tough it was to get to the state tournament, or how tough it was to get to the regional tournament. Because that year, that team, you talked about guys like Ryan Garza, Alec De La Cruz, Mikey Cantu, and, you had Lalo Rios, of course, leading the way, Edinburgh's wonder boy, and I mean that in the most respectful of ways because of the things he did. And, guys like him and Coach Johnny Cipriano, they're in their own realm. They are. It's Johnny Cipriano, Lalo Rios, and then, those are the 2 elites. And then you have, Marco Hinojosa, you have, Greg Yates when he coached at Harlingen. You have Brian Molina, have all these list of guys that just do a tremendous job. Lucio Rodriguez at Edinburgh Vela. But what Marco Hinojosa was able to do this year was truly special because it was at the 6A level. And I know Mark covered that game, and he just said that, they just simply got outgunned, and that's what happens. But the fact that they made it that far, for a team to do it, it had to have been this year's team. And just, with the pieces they had, and, their starting 5 was 4 seniors and 1 freshman. So they were a senior loaded club. And they went up against a team, that Edinburgh Vela, that they had played earlier in the year. And, I just think for the Valley, that game was just so much fun to watch and so much fun to cover. Just for them to make it to the regional tournament was a big deal.
And indeed, they had that, like you said, they had the 5 starters, 1 freshman, and the 4 seniors. They had the assets too coming off the bench. I remember Noriega was a good pull-up shooter as well, and then you would have Luis Gonzalez coming in. Injuries really got him early on in the year, but I mean, then their bench stepped up. Also want to mention, I forgot one name, Louis Yebra. You can't forget about him.
Oh yeah, Louis Yebra from McAllen Row. Yeah, that kid,
him.
That kid himself, he was just a junior, and the things he did against the game I covered when they played McAllen Memorial. They needed the win in order to win the district title, and that was the game that Darren Everidge got hurt. And the minute Everidge got hurt, Yebra wanted the ball, and he got the ball, and he was a man on a mission, and he scored 7 quick points in a hurry. So I mean, that was a pretty cool deal to see him do that. But talking about Los Fresnos, and they finished number 1 in our polls, and rightfully so. So what else do you have on the? We're gonna
we'll switch to 5A. The switch to 5A Region 4. A few Valley players. LeVar Lindo, obviously, going to play football. As Stephen F. Austin made the list, as well as, see if I can find his name. I remember Derek Luna also made it too, and as well as Damian Maldonado from Brownsville Vets. All pretty big key parts of their programs.
Yeah, Damian Maldonado was also a football player, and it was a pretty darn good one too for BVM. And so was LeVar Lindo, and who else you said made that list?
Derek Luna.
Derek Luna, yeah, and then Derek Luna, of course. Derek Luna's Derek Luna. What did he score? An easy 40?
Easy 40 in the final game of his basketball career.
How do you do that? As a former player, how do you just say, let me just drop 40 in my last game?
I mean, you got to feel it, man. I mean, this guy played for Duncanville the last year and won a state title. I can imagine coming back to the Valley and playing for Pioneer. He's gonna be like, yeah, I'm a good player. I can play with a lot of. I can shoot the ball. I can do some stuff. So I think his confidence definitely helped the already stacked Pioneer basketball team. So ultimately, Pioneer adding him coming off a state championship was big. And Derek Luna dropping 40. I mean, that's remarkable.
See, in that year, Vela went to state. They played Porter, Flower Bluff, Victoria East, Alamo Heights in the regional tournament, and then Nixon, and then they eventually met Lancaster. Man. Yeah, see, and to the point of Pioneer and how good they were at the 5A level, it takes a little bit of luck in between in these cards when it comes to the seeding and the brackets and the playoffs and where you fall. You got to have that luck somewhere in there, because I remember at the time it was Nixon and LBJ on the other side of the bracket. And I remember before we left the arena, the arena, I can't remember which one it was, but we're like, man, if somehow Nixon can beat LBJ, that would favor Vela so much more, because if they get LBJ, we're like, well, we might not like their chances as well, but Nixon pulled it off. The matchup became a sprint, a shooter's game. It became one of those run and gun games between Nixon and Vela, and eventually Ryan Garza took over. And by the time you know it, that team they won the region and they were going to state. So and Pioneer was a team that played very well down the stretch, and the things that they did with guys like Lindo, and then even Eddie Marburger was even on the basketball team too. And again,
another football player,
and having a guy like Derek Luna adding to that team. So definitely a special year for Pioneer. With their basketball team, and of course their football team, and that's a whole other conversation for another day, and just the what ifs if they were able to beat, if they were able to play Cal Allen in that next round. I mean, it was totally possible that they could have beaten Cal Allen.
Going up against a former state champion, man.
Well, because San Benito played Cal Allen that year, that first week of the year, when that game I covered, and San Benito almost beat Cal Allen. If they don't fumble at the goal line, they could possibly win that game. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't as if it was a daunting order, but the possibility was definitely there. So let's flip down to we went from 4A, or now we got our 4A list.
Now we're going to the 4A list. A little bit more my area now. Rockport in there, Fredericksburg. A few players to note. Daniel Rinza from Port Isabel, Gus Sanchez from Hidalgo, and Jabez from Rio Hondo.
Jabez
Villarreal. All played on the RGV Lakers team, so they're all really familiar with each other. So I wasn't surprised to see their names on this list.
Sanchez from Hidalgo.
Sanchez, let me tell you, playing against this kid was phenomenal. This kid, I think he was a sophomore when I was a senior. He was already one of the better players on the team, and what was a height disadvantaged team. His height never took a toll against him, and when we covered those games against Rio Hondo, he stepped in late in the game, put up some big buckets, some late free throws. I mean, the heart that Gus Sanchez played with was remarkable as well. Of course, Daniel Rinza from Port Isabel, just such a smooth jump shot he has. Like his ability to pump fake, take a dribble in, pull up for the mid-range is incredible. Port Isabel, I think we totally forgot about them when we were talking about as far as how far that Port Isabel will go in the playoffs, and then they surprise us and go 4 rounds. They make it to the regional tournament. What is the regional tournament?
Right, yeah.
Right? Yeah, and Rio Hondo, big topic for them was getting to the playoffs, obviously. They made it, got the 3 seed.
They were a 5-6 year drought that they missed out on. So shout out to Coach Mike Alvarez and Rio Hondo and them able to make it back to the playoffs. So yeah, Billy's from La Feria, so he's played against some of these guys back in his La Feria days. So yeah, Daniel Rinza, have you talked to him at all? Do you know if he's going anywhere?
I haven't talked to him, honestly.
I imagine him and Jabez.
I imagine, yeah. You know what? I want to say this on Jabez. He's been working his butt off for a while. I remember my first year after going to college, I remember going to watch the La Feria and Rio Hondo game, and I see this kid, and like, oh, he's not going to be that great. And then he pulls up from, like, the volleyball line. Boom. Makes it. I'm like, yeah. What? Where's this kid come from? I text a couple of my friends, like, yeah, he's gotten good. And he's going to these camps all the way in Nevada for some reason. I mean, Gervais really grew and took the offseason to really work on his game, and he shot the ball. He shot the lights out whenever he got the ball in his hands, and eventually it led to a playoff berth.
So what's next?
Next one, 3A. I think the only one to make it in 3A was David Balzadua from Santa Rosa.
From Santa Rosa, yeah, that's the only one I see there. Yeah, and Balzadua, he had a great year for Santa Rosa, and they just kind of ran into a little bit of a wall in that third round of the playoffs against Corpus Christi London, and a team that was really, really chomping at the bit to get their win against Santa Rosa, and a team that hadn't been able to beat Santa Rosa in these last couple of years. So Balzadua, the only one on the list there. So let's go down to Class 2A.
2A, we got, I think it was James Herrera and Tyke Johnson, the two lone ones from San Perlita, and then from Santa Maria, Bernardino Castellanos, as well as Giovanni Diaz. I never got to see much of Santa Maria.
Santa Maria, I got to watch them play against San Perlita the first go-around when it was in at Santa Maria. And, that team was very good. I believe they scored 2 points in that first quarter or 6 points when they played San Perlita. I can't remember. That was one of the first games I did with Joe. And, you erase that first quarter, Santa Maria, do they win that game, or it's a lot closer than the score indicated? But Santa Maria was a team that, again, you talk about the luck of the draw and where things fall. Santa Maria had the most favorable matchup in the third round. They had the most favorable matchup in the regional tournament. Unfortunately, they were unable to pull it out. But a lot of people going into those third, fourth round games was kind of looking at the teams that were left, and we're saying that Santa Maria is going to be one of those teams standing. And it was just their year, and, kudos to them and Coach Briones and for them to make it to the regional tournament. And that speaks well on how good small school basketball is in the Valley, because the year before we had San Perlita go to the regional tournament. This year we had Santa Maria go to the regional tournament. And, of course, state the obvious, Tyke Johnson goes out with an injury. If they have Tyke Johnson, they go back to the regional tournament for a second straight year.
Yep.
And then we're talking about Santa Maria and San Perlita in the regional tournament. The what ifs, you talk about San Perlita and the things they did.
Almost another snakeskin battle in the region.
Yeah. And then imagine that. You have an all-valley region final. That'd have been something. But, for San Perlita, they had another good year, and they lost 5 seniors last year. They lost Brian Herrera. They lost Parker Willis. They lost Julian Herrera, to name a few kids, Noah Olivares. And the question this year was, who are these younger kids who are going to step up? And, of course, Tyg held his own. He did what he was supposed to do. And then you had guys like
Eli Terry.
Eli Terry, who was a sophomore this year. He grew. Max Graciani, who he
took the role coming right off the JV squad, too. He came in, wasn't afraid, and then made some plays in the playoffs. So that kid really took this year to step into a role he was, I don't want to say he's uncomfortable with, but what was new to him. Getting the first year, San Perlita's expected to go far because they're really good at basketball, and I think Graciani really took advantage.
Diego
of that
Ortiz too stepped up big for Coach Garza, and of course EJ Nieto. When you mentioned the kid shooting from the volleyball line, I'm always gonna think of EJ Nieto because that kid just fearless. He'll shoot from anywhere.
Yep.
The volleyball line, NBA 3, it don't matter. So we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break, and then we're gonna talk about the girls region list when we come back here on Real Sports Live.
This game is brought to you in part by the Concession Stand in Santa Rosa, a locally owned business providing a terrific atmosphere before or after the games and supporting athletes of all ages. When you're in Santa Rosa, be sure to stop by the Concession Stand and choose from the wide assortment of goodies. An advertising partner with Rio Sports Live is the Concession Stand.
Good afternoon, Sherryland community. First of all, I'd like to start off by thanking our parents for their patience in this unprecedented situation that we find ourselves in today. As you have read my letter, we have closed our school district until further notice. I want you to know that this decision was based on a lot of guidance from our federal, state, and local agencies. I'd like to thank them for everything that they have done to keep us leaders informed on this ever-changing situation. We have no rule book for how to handle this situation, and it is changing on a daily basis. I continue to rely on a slow and steady approach to making our decisions. We have reviewed all federal, state, and local guidelines. Local agencies have informed us. We have worked collaboratively with our administrative team, and collaboratively with our Board of Trustees, we have made some informed decisions. My administrative team will continue, parents, to monitor this unprecedented situation. Again, reviewing all federal, state, and local guidance that has come from our agencies. But just know that we will do our best to keep our community informed via our website. So please check our website periodically for any updates on information happening. I also like to let our parents know that our curriculum department has been working diligently to provide what we will be calling our digital learning initiative. Please, again, check our website for updated information. I want to, again, thank our parents for your patience throughout this entire situation. These are uncharted waters that none of us have ever been through. Thank you for being true partners in the education of our children. I want to also thank our students. I know this has not been easy. I'm sure you're enjoying this week of spring break. You'll enjoy the following. But after that, it becomes time to then collaborate with your friends. None of you have been through a situation like this. So I also want to talk to our seniors and a little shout out to you. I'm at a loss of words for what this means to you, seniors. This is a time where you're having big plans for graduations, proms, and all things that come with being a senior. I don't know what the future holds, but do know this, that together we will work through anything that happens in our district. Teachers.
And welcome back. Kevin Naro, Billy Watson, just about to wrap up everything here on our first show, and we got some the girls R region list starting in class 6A. So the only girl on that class 6A list was Annika Sines from Edinburgh High. She was a junior this year, and unfortunately, in early December, she went down with a knee injury against Harlingen South, and that team easily could have just taken a back seat, and them losing their best player and arguably the best girl player in the Valley, if not one of the top players. That team really came into their own, and they figured things out, and they figured things out real quick with a girl like Bree Sanchez and Trujillo, excuse me, and the Martinez sisters. They were able to win that district or tie with Weslaco, and they were able to get that playoff win against Hannah, or they were able to win the seeding game against Weslaco to get the 1 seed. And then they beat Hannah, and then they were able to, put together that win against, was it Laredo? Not Laredo United South. Gosh, excuse me, forgive me. But they were able to beat United South in the third round. In the third round, that was the more impressive part. What Edinburgh High was able to do. So Annika Sines, the only one listed on the 6A list.
Switching gears to the 5A now. Jordan Bravo of Sherryland Pioneer. All region list for 5A, as well as Elizabeth Garza from BVM. I think there was one more.
Ronnie Cantu.
How can you forget?
Ronnie Cantu. Yeah, she definitely wrapped up a really, really great career over at
Mission Vets.
Over at Mission Vets. So that's class 5A. What do we have in 4A?
4A, I think the lone survivor, I guess you want to call that, of the 4A list was Savannah Sanchez out of Hidalgo, and yeah, that makes sense because definitely led her team. I think they went 2 rounds this year. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I obviously haven't been here.
They went too deep.
They went too deep, yes. Okay, so yeah, Savannah Sanchez, a really good shooter. I remember in the Rio Hondo game that I covered early on in the Christmas break, she was essential in keeping winning the first early district game against Rio Hondo. Had a great assist, finding Mel Salinas in the post, who had a big game that game as well. So Savannah Sanchez, the Lone Valley 4A girl in the regional list. For 3A, Samantha Delgado out of Lyford making that one. I'm sure you got to see her play a couple times. Kevin, Samantha Delgado of Lyford. I think another also lone player in the 3A level. And then wrapping up with 2A from San Perlita was
Megan Kenny.
Megan Kenny.
Yeah. She was definitely one of the more talented point guards in class 2A. Easily, she had to have been the fastest for sure. And that kid, she's tough as nails, and she's as good as they come. And actually, matter of fact, her parents are sponsors with us, Laguna Baits, over in Port Mansfield. So just the other day, my dad and I were out fishing in Port Mansfield, and we went by the bait shop and got some bait there. And I talked to Megan's mom, and that kid, actually I did a story on her in our first tab, and she was like, "Well, I really didn't play. I didn't play basketball until 7th grade, and the only reason I played was because I wanted us to have a team. So I needed to go out there and help make the team. So I went out there and I did it. I liked it. I was good at it. So she kept at it, and she ended up becoming one of the better point guards really in the valley. And she did basketball, she did softball, and she did volleyball as well, and she played a big role in volleyball as well. So she was definitely a good kid to be around, and she definitely had a good year for Semperlidia and the things that they were able to do. But we had some fans tuning in from Detroit, Michigan. We had fans tuning in. Let's see. Annie Richards Nearhood, hello from, she's a Texan, but in Detroit, Michigan. Shout out to the 313. We had fans tuning in from Raymondville. We had fans tuning in from Bryan. My family tuning in from Bryan, Texas. We had fans tuning in from Indiana. So it's kind of nice to see that again, where people are chiming in from, and people are wondering what we're up to these days because of the state that we're in. Of course, with there being no sports for at least, from what we know now, is a month. Again, just recapping what we did earlier was we talked about the state that we're in with this COVID-19, and how a lot of people are kind of just wondering what's going to be next as far as the sports world goes. And I know sports guys like me, I've been watching replays of MLB baseball, and then I got the show the other day on the PlayStation 4, so I've been playing that to kind of keep me occupied and keep me in the sports loop. But again, we're hoping that once May 4th comes, we'll be able to either start practices or pick up the games right off the bat. And I think that if we're allowed to do that, I think we'll start with practices, and then we'll jump back into the games because it's been a month.
It's been a long month, yeah, and it's been a long week for all of us here. Obviously trying to get stuff together. I know other sportscasters, not only in the valley but in the state, have been struggling to find some stories. But the creativity starts to come in as well, so it's a good thing. But also, it's gonna be pretty tough going into May 4th. Hopefully, this thing will get under control and we'll get back to our normal lives.
Yeah, and we're gonna have all the sports we can handle, because again, girls soccer playoffs was fixing to get underway. Boys soccer playoffs was I believe a week behind. We'll have baseball to talk about. We'll have track to talk about, tennis, and of course softball. That was a full steam ahead, and that's kind of what we wrapped up at on the season. We just had that monster game with Lyford and Harlingen South on Tuesday. And the expectation was to have games on Friday, which we ended up having. And just to let you know that this whole week I had it mapped out. Tuesday or Monday, it was going to be Los Fresnos, Lyford. Tuesday was going to be Ed Couch Mercedes. Wednesday was going to be Rio Hondo PI. Thursday was going to be Harlingen South and Ed Couch Elsa. That was my schedule for this week. And, of course, obviously, things changed. And, yeah, it stinks, life without sports, says Roel Rodriguez. No, it really does. But I think we're all going to hang in there, and when sports does come back, and it will, we're going to appreciate it more than ever. And I already appreciate it, but, for some people, they're going to be like, hey, can't take things for granted, especially, when we just have games every Tuesday, every Friday, practices every Wednesday, every Thursday. So, and hopefully, these seniors, again, as we get ready to wrap up, is these seniors, hopefully that these kids get to play out their season, and because obviously some kids are going to be playing at the college level, so their careers aren't done. I'm not saying that they're not thinking that way, but in the back of their heads is like, I still have my college career to look forward to. Some kids don't have that. This is all that they're going to have as far as their careers go. They're going to enjoy that. That's how I had it. I only played. We both only played in high school, so there's nothing wrong with that, but hopefully these kids have that shot to play, they get to finish out their season whether that's in track or softball or baseball or whatever the case may be. So, but yeah, one more time, we want to thank our sponsors, Hacienda. This broadcast was made possible by Hacienda Ford. Right now, you can buy a new car or truck at zero interest, and your first payment isn't due for 6 months. Only at Hacienda Ford here in Edinburgh. And a big thank you and a shout out to them for sponsoring this show. And again, the plan going forward is, next week, I think maybe as soon as this weekend, we want to maybe put some shows together. Again, whether we'll be here or whether I'll be solo or Billy will be solo, whatever the case may be. Also, with Joe as well, he wants to get involved in some shows. Next week we want to put together some shows that we can do. Maybe, like I said, again, we'll recap the top 10 in basketball for girls and boys, and we mix things up a little bit, and keep the fans interested in sports and having something to talk about. And of course, a week from now, I'm sure there'll be more NFL free agency news. There'll be more NBA news and things like that. So we're going to do our best to keep the sports coming and going. And again, we have a couple of things in mind. So before we sign off, just in case you're wondering, that's DeMarcus Ware, the World Series trophy. That's Milo Hamilton, and that's Craig Biggio. In case you're wondering who is on the desk here with us, it's
a nice setup here, right here.
Yeah, a little bit of a homies setup here with, just we set up everything here. A shout out, to my parents for opening up the doors and really helping us put this together. Here from our, again, living room / kitchen, or like I said, we're right on the border. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and again, hopefully we can put some more things together and as we move forward. So everyone just stay safe and enjoy yourselves, and just follow what the government is telling you. Follow the rules, abide by everything that they're telling us to do, and just again, most importantly, just stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time.